Okay, cool.
Just so I have it. And how do you go by Alice or Ace? Like, what is your
Oh, you can
preferred?
call me Ace.
Ace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was telling my son, he's 9 and he listens to
Mhm.
this podcast. Because he thinks it's cool that mom has a podcast,
That's so cute.
And and I told him today, he asked me today, who are you interviewing? And I said, well, their name is Alice Sparkly Cat, but I think they go by Ace. And he didn't believe me. He was like, no, nobody has that cool of a name. Like he thought it was all cool. And I like I like showed the confirmation in the calendar. I'm like, you see? And he's like so excited to hear what this is all going to be about.
Oh
So,
my
and
God.
as am I.
That's
um,
so funny. That's so
yeah,
cute. Your son
yeah.
sounds awesome.
He's pretty cool cat. He's a difficult one. We actually just got his diagnosis this summer that he has ADHD.
Oh, okay.
Um, Inattentive presentation. We literally just found out like in
Mhm.
August.
Oh,
But obviously we had some wonderings, which is why we went and got the neuropsych exam done in the first place. And it's it explains a lot, as to why why the typical parenting advice just has never applied for
oh,
him.
yeah.
So that was like liberating.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we like have some magical solution as to like how
Mhm.
best to parent him. So
Yeah.
but yeah, he's quite he's a unique thinker. Like he doesn't act like a typical 9-year-old, I don't think.
It's
So
cool that you got the diagnosis so early, too, because then, it's like, then and you can work on support and
yes, yeah.
everything.
So that's where we are now, is just to try to understand him,
Mhm.
and what
Right.
works. But it's hard because I'm human and I get triggered,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, ah. So when I'm in like a emotional stasis, which is, basically never, then it's fine. Then I can like,
Right.
be the best parent I can be. But most of the
Yeah.
time it's just like, but yeah, I mean, we literally just started and I'm just entering like parent groups or just trying to understand more about the way his brain
Nice.
ticks. And
Yeah.
but anyway, welcome to
Yeah.
Voices on the Side. Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having me.
No, I was so excited when you got back to me. I know it's like kind of a weird thing to randomly appear in someone's DMs or inbox, like but I'm so excited, and I think this conversation is going to be really special because of what we've been talking about in our emails,
Yeah,
right? Just like,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, no, go, yeah, leading up to it, I think I just we're just going to let the conversation go wherever it takes us. And I have your book here,
Oh,
which
cool.
I haven't read yet. I wanted to read
That's
it in
okay.
advance of our but I have studying to do afterwards, and I'm very lucky because I get to pepper you with questions ahead of reading it. But did you
Thanks
get a
for.
chance? Yeah,
Oh,
sorry. I talk a lot. I talk a lot. Sorry. You
no,
should
no, you
speak.
go ahead. Yeah, I was just like, thanks for getting the book. That's it. Yeah. What were you gonna
Oh.
say?
I was just going to ask if you had a chance to look at the questions and if everything had felt okay to
Oh
you.
no, I actually
And oh,
haven't.
I should also say, like, this is all edited by a production team. So,
Nice.
whatever, if I say something and you're like, I don't really want to talk about that, like we'll just edit it out. It's totally fine. Um,
Nice.
but the point of the podcast that I just felt called to take on this project was just to get more Asian stories out there, to just get
Right.
more out, bring us out from the so-called margin and like just elevate our experiences and our perspectives. And I think astrology is so interesting. One of my best friends has just started doing her own readings for people,
Oh, cool.
and she's a quarter Japanese, but she's
Mhm.
white presenting. And we've been in deep conversation over the last year about racism, and her is trying to come to terms with accepting that racism against Asians does exist.
Right.
Because like prior to last year, she was like, no, Asians do really well. Like there's
Um,
that's not real, but with the rise of anti-Asian hate crimes over the last few years, it's just become part of a more mainstream conversation. And so, and because she's part Japanese, it's like a big internal reckoning for her. And she's thinking about like her Japanese ancestors and just like how uninformed she was because she just never was on the receiving end of anything like that.
mm,
And as she's gotten into astrology, she's like kind of fed up with what a white space it is. And
right.
she's even questioning practicing herself because she's like, I don't think I need to add my white voice to an already white space.
Oh,
Um, and she actually introduced me to you. She was so excited to find you, and she like
oh,
follows
cool.
every little thing you do, and it's helping her inform like her practice and to move forward in some more aware way, and to be mindful to not come from like a purely white perspective. Um, but yeah, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been practicing astrology? And um, I mean, yeah, that's a good place to
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, I've been practicing astrology for 8 years. Yeah, I mean, it seems shorter in my head, so I say out loud 8 years. It seems like a long time, but it's not that long too. So around 8 years. Yeah, started in 2015, so it's 2023 now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you what did you do before then? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or like did it, like how did it land in your life?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like astrology, it's not like something that people really see as a career path when we're young people. So I feel like there's not many people who are like, oh, like, like my career choice, my dream job is to become an astrologer from really, because it's not like, yeah, it's not something you major in, and then it's not something that you apply either. And then I was doing all kinds of things. I was doing like what I had retail, I was doing like data entry a little bit too. So I mean, yeah, different things. And then it's funny because doing astrology, I didn't think it would be like a full-time thing ever, but then it's become that at the end of the day. So it's changed a lot for me, like through that transition, and then because of it. And I mean, astrology's become more popular during that time as well. Because before it's like, okay, well, I'm just working whatever job, and then doing astrology as a as a hobby. Like, I mean, not really hobby, just something I do with people. And then it's like, okay, this is kind of a job now. So,
Yes. So it
yeah,
like organically happened where it became like your work. I
yeah,
was gonna say that
yeah.
when you said astrology isn't something you think about taking on as a career, and I would think that's true, especially for like an Asian person, like I don't, did you have that where it was sort of, did you have expectations of the types of career? There's it's a stereotypical thing where Asian parents only want their kids to do medicine, law, or finance. Did you grow up in that
Yeah.
kind of environment of expectation?
Well, it's funny because so I majored in art. So I mean, I couldn't really do like what's it, like one of those career paths. And yeah, so I mean, that's probably why my job options were a little shitty. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is kind of hard to justify choosing astrology as a job as an Asian, but I feel like it's also true for anyone too, because astrology, it's not a job. Like you go on what's it Indeed, and then you can't really apply to be an astrologer in general too. So yeah. And then in my perspective, that means that it's not really a career. It's like a practice. And then I mean, because it does take all your time, you have to figure out how to make an income from it. But yeah, I mean, it's like troubled in my mind for sure, but I definitely don't see it as a career.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
I think I mentioned in my first email to you that I've had an astrologer since 2007.
Yeah.
And I was in LA teaching yoga. So for me and my immediate world, it was very normal to like have an astrologer, like it was
Oh,
to
yeah.
just because I was in a very quote woo woo
Yeah.
environment. But you're totally right that where it has gone to now over the last decade, couple decades, it's really interesting. And I think much more respected because more people are getting, because you realize that astrology is not what you read at the back of Cosmo magazine. I don't even know if that magazine still exists, but I always think of, like the back page of fashion magazines where it has your horoscope and it's just like, oh, you're a Virgo, then this is what you need to look out for this month, or, and it's totally not that. That's like, I mean, oversimplification doesn't even begin to describe what that is, right? It's just so much more than that. And then when you bring in all the other, so I also look to other, I don't know what you call it, like intuitive guidance or divine guidance or other systems. I incorporate it all just to kind of guide me through, I guess, like bigger decisions, not so much like what should I have for lunch today, but more like what is this like feeling I'm getting of being called to investigate this part of me or this part of what I'm interested in, and I do find a congruence from whatever system I'm going to, like whether it's Western astrology or I've done other like healing, I don't even know what you call it, therapies with people. And then you mentioned Asian cosmologies as well. And we have in Korean culture, I was asking my sister-in-law who's Korean from Korea. And I asked her about Saju. That's the system, right? That is in
Yeah, yeah,
Korea.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And she was like, whoa, what are you she was like, that's a really big question. I just was like,
Oh,
what, do you know
really?
anything about Saju? And she was like, wait, why are you asking? Are you thinking of going in to study that? It's like really, complicated system. And I was like, oh no, I was just curious, like what you know about it. And because she maybe like 12 years ago or so changed her name from her birth name to her current name, what she goes by. And a driving force for that was that she spoke to a Korean, I guess the translation is fortune teller, but that just conjures up like some really woo-woo strange like
Yeah.
imagery. I think it's a much more respected cultural practice to
Is it a
go.
shaman? Shaman?
I guess yes, it's more like
Yeah.
a shaman. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And was advised to change her name, and I'm not sure the other details of what happened, but because she really wanted to have children and like it wasn't happening, and something to do with the name they felt.
Nice.
And then she got pregnant shortly thereafter, and she has
Wow.
gone by that name ever since. And
Yeah.
so I don't, and I was wondering if this Haju has to do with Korean shamanism. I know nothing, and I know you know more from the Chinese practice of it.
Right. Yeah. I
Similar.
think it's similar. I'm not sure about it, but I think it's similar. There's like some techniques that are different. But you know who else changed her name because a shaman told her to is Lisa, La Lisa from Blackpink.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's worked
See,
out for her.
yeah, I would say. Yeah. See, so there's like this like mystical, I don't know what it power or energy, something that has some kind of translation into real people's daily lives, right? And
Yeah. It's
I mean,
kind of cool.
it's
Yeah.
really wild. Is that how
Yeah.
you use astrology as well, and how you speak to clients, or I don't know, like in how do you, because my astrologer, I should say, has never said to me, has never felt like fortune telling at all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
has it's never been like, ooh, don't do this, or you should do this, or break up with this person, or
Right.
it's so much more nuanced, the information. And it's like, but in hindsight, she will have said something. And like 8 months later, I'll look back at my notes and be like, oh my God, she called it, And, but it was not like, it's not like
Yeah.
advice giving. It's, can you explain that? Like what I'm Does that make sense to you? That
It makes sense. Yeah, I think it just depends on what culture. Because, like, like the idea of changing your name, like for a lot of people, it makes sense too. And then, yeah, this is funny story, but I was getting into Banzi analysis. I was looking at my best friend's thing, and I was like, oh, you have no wood. And they're like, why do you think my name has three trees in it? So,
Oh,
so I feel like you talk to people about this stuff and you're like, oh shit, like your parents have been into this for, I mean, like for your name. It's pretty common too. So it's like it's in there with what people call themselves, with how they think of themselves. Like Western astrology, it tends to be more psychological, but like what is the psyche? It's not just something that's in here in the brain, it's something that we live outside of too. And then uh yeah, so I mean, what you call yourself, what your name is, it can totally be part of the psyche if you think of it that way. I mean, not all the time too, because some people have a name and then it's not important what it means to them, and that's totally fair.
yeah. See, I think this is where the whole idea of, yes, there's this information from the cosmos or
Mhm.
whatever, however we want. I feel it's so difficult to put language to all these ideas. Like our language is so limited. But
Yeah.
okay, there's like we have our birth cosmology, our birth charts, whatever. But then there's the idea that we're free, we're like free, we have free will. We're conscious beings that make conscious or also subconscious, I guess, choices constantly. So we're also impacting, right? Like it's like we're not just living out a mapped out, like
Yeah.
preordained existence, right? Like
Yeah.
there's like, and how
Yeah.
much do you think also like how much one kind of believes in something impacts like this with the name
Mhm.
example? If take my sister-in-law, if she really believed in it,
Mhm.
and like and maybe for somebody else that had that same conversation, they didn't believe in it, they don't really care, maybe they changed their name but they didn't really go by it, and then like is
Yeah.
it does it make sense to you that the results could be different, like your own belief impacting?
I know, right? Like we know so little about the origin of languages, and I mean we know a lot, but we also know so little. And then it is a question, like when you name something, because like so few of us choose our own names, and then we do. I mean, I chose my own name, but like, yeah, the act of choosing your own name, like, is it really a choice? Names are
Right.
things that are given to you by what other people, what they call you too. And then if you were to name something, like this is a biblical story, even like Adam's task was to name things. And then, yeah, is the name of something just like, what we call it, or is it like an inherent aspect of a thing? And then that's language too. And astrology, it's language system. So it's a big mystery. I don't know. Yeah. And how did you, yeah, and I always like to ask people this. How did you get your name?
My name, oh, so my Korean immigrant parents were in Chicago when I was born. And I don't know if it was language barrier or what,
Yeah.
but they were told I was going to be a boy.
Yeah.
And which for my Korean parents was like a great thing, firstborn being a
Right.
son. And my dad's an artist as well. He studied fine art and he taught fine art. And Leonardo da Vinci is one of his greatest heroes.
Oh,
So he was like, obviously, my firstborn son is going to be called Leonardo. Like that was going to be the name. And
nice.
then I was born and I was, a girl.
Mhm.
And they were shocked because the whole pregnancy, they had been told that they were having a boy. And I'm also realizing this conversation is maybe quite archaic with like the whole, gender binary, but this
Yeah.
is my parents' story. This is
Right.
their experience. And they were just like, well, I don't think we can name our daughter Leonardo. And somebody like at my dad's school where he taught was like, well, why don't you just call her Leah? That's pretty close. So
Nice.
that's that's how they didn't, because they weren't like English wasn't their first. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that wasn't their first language, and they were so set on this name Leonardo, and they were happy with it. I guess
Yeah.
being close.
Leonardo's a cool name.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I always think about this is like, stories, writing stories, and then if you write an Asian American character, like what to call them to communicate to the reader that they're Asian American. And then it's kind of tough. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can always call someone Kevin how many times, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's really true. Wait, were you named Alice at
I was born in
birth?
China, and then
Okay.
yeah, and then my name is Yanglan. And then so it was my dad's family name and my mom's surname, or my mom's family name, like put together.
Right.
And then yeah, and then her dad is like, yeah, has like ideas about gender equality. So he wanted all the females to be in the family tree. And then, so yeah, that's part of it. I actually recently asked my parents like for a new name because I wanted a little more fire in my name too.
Mm.
So they changed it to Yang Yulan. But and
And
then
that
Yu
what
is like it sounds like the word for you, like Henan people, which is I'm from Henan. And then yeah, but my mom, like, she went to a fortune teller or something, and then they gave her a name like when she was younger, but then she forgot about it, like when I was born. So I didn't get
oh,
the
she gave like the baby name, like your future child should be called this name. And then
yeah.
she
But
forgot.
she forgot about it, and then she remembered when I was like 2. She tried to change it, but then it didn't stick. So it was like, and then when we moved to the United States, like the first apartment we were living in, someone left like a dictionary there. So they just flipped it open, first girl's name, and then it was Alice. And then, yeah. And then I was like, okay, I want another name. My best friend actually gave me the name Ace. So,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that. It's so cool. And it's derived, the letters are derived from Alice. So
Exactly. Yeah, they
there's
said get
that
rid of 2
there,
letters.
yeah. I mean, there's that linguistic correlation, which I think is really cool. But then I like that you also still keep it. It's all part, you're kind of like absorbing all the different
All the
names that you've
names.
had, right? Like
Yeah.
it's really cool. Yeah, I used to hate that my last name is my maiden last name is Kim.
Hmm.
For multiple reasons, partly because sometimes people just called me Kim,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
which it's just like especially I'll write an email. This still happened. I think it just happened last week. I'll write an email, sign it Leah, and
Hmm.
then the response will be, "Hey Kim," and you just
What? That
know.
makes
Yeah,
no
I mean,
sense.
it's just like you just haven't. I'm clearly not that important to you, or you're not paying attention, and that kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
then also the other layer of not liking it growing up was like everyone knew I was Korean. Well, if you knew
Mm.
the name, because Kim is pretty much always a Korean surname, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt like that came with all this I don't know, all these assumptions, all these whatever, and I didn't want to be boxed in like that. And also like growing up Korean American, it's really or any bicultural identity is like really confusing, like it like at home it's with with like immigrant parents, it's very much like you're in Korean, like Korean culture is like the defining thing. But then at school, it's very American.
Yeah.
And, you're just like kind of in the middle and you want to, especially as a child, you want to fit in. And so I like rejected a lot of my Koreanness. This is one of my biggest regrets. It's not the hugest deal, but like the normal, it's like boring now, but the whole thing of immigrants getting made fun of for our food, right? Our food smelling
Oh, right.
weird and all this when we're little. And when you're a child, you really take that to heart, right? It's really hard to understand that that's about the other people's ignorance or judgment. Like you think something's wrong with yourself. So I was like, pack me bologna sandwiches, pack me Lunchables. Like I do not pack me Asian food anymore. And I'm only using forks from now on. I'm like, I'm not using chopsticks anymore. And it was like this rebellion, this American girl rebellion, I guess, or something. And I really didn't use chopsticks. And as I got older, I was like, oh man, it's cool to use chopsticks. Like I want to use them again. And I think I was probably already in college, maybe late high school by the time I was kind of getting back to being proud or wanting to be proud or wanting to understand my Korean heritage. And I relearned the chopsticks incorrectly. Um,
Oh,
so like
how do you do it?
I cross them
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
like
crossed them. I didn't do it right either. Like, let me find
really?
another.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so we both, but I mean, I always people like, so my husband is white and
I do
he
this.
uses chopsticks better. Oh, really? You do them like that too? That's how I do them.
You know why we do it like this is because little kids hold chopsticks like this, like
Yeah.
3-year-olds, and then like when you're an adult, you're supposed to hold it like this or
Yes,
something.
it's so
But
hard.
I think since we did it when we were kids and then we stopped doing it for a while, like maybe we just kept the 3-year-old method.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
so, okay, so like my husband learned as an adult and he learned it properly. So he like,
Right.
it's this funny thing where
Mhm.
as my son was wanting to learn, I'm like, oh, you got to ask your dad,
That's
he's
so
like,
funny.
but you're the Asian one. I'm like, I know, don't learn it from me. I'm going to teach you the wrong way. And he,
Yeah.
he likes to be like, mom, this is how you do chopsticks. I'm like, I know my hands just won't do it. Like I can't.
Right. Yeah, we're used to doing like this because yeah, all Asian kids do it like this, I think. I mean,
All right.
unless they have nimble fingers, but it's because their hands are too small.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Well, you've just made me feel a lot better about that. But I've always been
Yeah, it's
like,
okay. It works.
it does work. It does. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Um,
just our hands are large enough to do the correct method, but we
it's
didn't
hard though.
learn.
It's like the muscle memory is just fully ingrained, right? So it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
Yeah.
I always took it as I'm going to let go of that shame then. You've
Yeah,
just,
yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
you've just freed me from that shame. How old were you when you moved to the States?
I was like a week from my 6th birthday, so I was like 5 or 6.
And your parents came over as well. Are they still in the States or have they?
Yeah. They came. So what happened was that my mom came, and then yeah, 8 months later, me and my dad came. She brought us over, and yeah. And so my parents, they would have been, I guess, third Jupiter return, 36, something like that.
Oh yeah, you mentioned
Mhm.
your Jupiter return as to when you started studying astrology. Was that right?
Second Jupiter return. Yeah. It was 23, 24, something like that.
I
Mhm.
only know about I only know about Saturn returns. What's Jupiter
Yeah.
returns?
Jupiter, it's every 12 years. You get your first one at the onset of puberty. And then it is kind of like a puberty each time.
Right. So 12, 24,
36,
36,
yeah,
48.
48.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like a not rebirth or like some like going deeper into a certain layer of
It's
yourself or
Yeah, you could contest ideologies, I mean, unexpected things happen too. I feel like Jupiter return is a lot like it isn't like Saturn return where it's like, okay, I gotta get my shit together. Jupiter is like, I'm gonna throw something at you, some of the time. Some people have like a lot of people I've noticed have kids during the third Jupiter return.
right. I was just gonna say, well, how long is it though? Is it like does it
Oh,
span a
just a
period?
year. Yeah,
It's
a
just
year.
1 year. So does it
Yeah.
have to be, is it exactly then when everyone is 24, it's happening and
No,
no,
yeah,
okay.
it's
It's like
like,
rough. It's
yeah, it's
roughly, right.
rough. Yeah. Some people get it at 23, some people get it at 24. This like the same concept exists in Chinese astrology, but it's called your Benmingnian, and so it's like the repeat of your year pillar, like that animal. And then, yeah, I mean, it's seen as something that's really like kind of spooky, kind of bad. You have to ward yourself like from
Mm.
bad things happening to you. But in Western astrology, Jupiter return is seen as like lucky, like it's your year of luck. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a different opinion on the same thing.
Do you then like now that you have so much information about it, as you look forward, like as you look to future,
Mhm.
do you prepare? Is there anything you could do to like prepare or like can you
No.
it's
Yeah,
just
I
gonna
don't
be
think so.
it's just gonna be
Yeah.
thrown at you and you just have to be ready, basically.
Right. Yeah. It's like, for example, like it's like what's a good example? It's like, oh, okay, we all know that at some point, like we're gonna cross a threshold where we're like, okay, like we've aged enough where Like we can't keep working, for example, something like that. It's like, aging is something that happens to us, but it's impossible to prepare for as well.
Mm,
Yeah. And so I don't think you can prepare
mm.
for like a development in your own mindset, like increased
No.
maturity, but also unexpected things, Yeah.
No, that's the same thing as like trying to prepare for like parenthood.
Right,
It's like the
exactly.
same thing. Like you can read all the books, have all the conversations with other people, but you just can't, there's no other way than to learn it while it's happening.
Right. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
you're gonna become a parent for nine
Yeah.
months and then
Yeah, yeah.
so,
But like you can't, you might as well not even read them. And for me anyway, my
yeah.
experience was like, what was the point in reading anything? Because it's not like the information isn't really immediately accessible. It maybe doesn't apply to your situation. Like you
Right.
just have to like dive in and like feel the water, be like, oh, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
can I ask you about like your relationship with your family of origin? Like, was it like, do you remember moving here and being,
Yeah.
like being, obviously, did you speak any English when you moved first?
No, yeah. I was
Yeah.
like 5 or 6. So, I mean, I barely spoke Chinese, but
You barely spoke at all. I'm gonna knock my computer off the table. So
uh,
you learned at school then. You learned English at school.
yeah, I was in ESL and then special education learning.
Right.
I mean, learning is English, all kinds of things as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I remember everything. I don't know why, but I have really crystal clear memories of when I was 5, 6, before and two. I remember when I was a baby being washed in the sink. I mean,
Wow.
who knows though? Who knows? Because all our memories are reconstructed in the end.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I believe that like the memory is real, but then maybe some details are filled in by what other people told you or
yeah,
photos. Like I know I do it with like photos. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I was wearing. Yeah, because I saw the photo of it. But that
yeah,
like melds together to form the memory, which is true.
right. Yeah, this is what I
Um,
remember is like we came and then like my mom looked completely different. It's like I haven't seen her for
oh,
become
right.
a different person. And then we came to the apartment where she was staying, and then it's like I've never seen so much space. I can't believe I get my own room. Like I was
Mm.
really happy. I was like, I thought it was a hotel. I was like, is this a hotel? Like, I can't touch anything. Because before we're like, staying with my grandparents, and then all the women would sleep in one room, all the men in the other room. So I
Mm.
mean, I just couldn't believe I got my own room. And then my parents were like, leave us alone, we're gonna take a nap. And then now I'm like, okay, yeah, don't come in.
Wait, you had siblings
No,
with
I
you?
don't have siblings. Yeah, they're like, yeah, I was born in China, one child
Right.
policy. So
Oh, of
yeah.
course.
Yeah, but they were
Right.
like, yeah, don't come in. And then
Right.
they came out, they look really happy. So
Did you not ever go in? Were you good at
I
following
didn't
their
go in. I
rules?
was like, I have
Yeah.
my own room. I'm gonna hang out by
Yeah,
myself or
you were
something.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where were you growing up?
I was in Iowa. So
Oh my
Ames,
gosh.
Iowa. Yeah.
That friend that I mentioned to you that is quarter Japanese she's from Iowa.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's the only other person I know, I think, from Iowa.
Yeah. It's an interesting place in general. And then it's hard to grow up in Iowa, like if you're Asian.
I would think so. I mean, I can't imagine it was a very racially diverse like
No.
school, right? Where you were and
Yeah. It's very white. I think what like 97% of the population in Iowa is actually white. So that's pretty high percentage. And then, but Iowans are interesting people. It's like, yeah, it's not like other places, I think, because I've been, now I live in Philly, but I've been living in New York for so long, and then people have this assumption about Midwesterners, but yeah, I mean, Midwesterners, they're like very imaginative, very creatively complex. So yeah, I mean, I like Iowa to some extent, and then all the Chinese people, we all kind of know each other
hmm.
too. So it's like you see another Asian person, they're like, okay, how's your mom? Is kind of the environment. So yeah, it's not that tough because there's a stronger sense of community when you like yeah, where there's lesser. Where I mean
Right.
like there's just fewer people.
Yeah, because you all know you kind of have to look out for each other and you
Yeah.
have that. Also, there's this like deep innate familiarity. Like I feel like most of the time when I see another Korean person just out, like I feel like I can tell they're Korean. I can't always
Mhm.
tell other East Asians
Mhm.
generally, I'm like, oh, but I feel
Yeah.
like there's something, and it's only really in person. Like I can't always tell from a photo,
Right.
but I feel like there's something. It's like, oh, we come from the
Yeah.
same place. Like there's this like resonance
Yeah.
and then there's usually when if I end up talking to that person, it's like, are you Korean? There's like a
Mhm.
happiness, there's like a joy in
Yeah.
like, oh, you're Korean too,
Yeah.
and I think like especially being
Relate.
yeah, and like being in the States, and it automatically fills in some blanks about like what our experiences may have been getting to this point in life, right? Like
Yeah.
being growing up Asian in America. But that is a good point about even places that aren't necessarily really diverse, you still have community because I mean, that's how like Chinatowns and Koreatowns came to be, right? It's like it grew from those like maybe smaller
Yeah.
places that had a few of those Chinese families and then more, and it grows, and you've kind of built this like
Yeah.
safe culture there.
Yeah.
um so that's cool. And are they still in Iowa?
No, my parents are in Philly. That's why I moved
Oh,
here. Yeah,
oh,
I
okay.
saw them yesterday, actually,
Oh,
last night at
nice.
dinner.
So
Um,
what do they think about your astrology? Do you talk to
I
them about it
mean,
much?
they're into my mom's really into astrology, and then I don't know why. I mean, she's been into it. Like her dad was actually really into the eating, so he left me a lot of books on it. I actually just found the other day like handwritten notes from him in the books, and then he
Mm.
died, so that was really special to me. But he wanted to like be into it, and then he was like he couldn't. I think during the Cultural Revolution you weren't supposed to study or something, but then he got back into it when like in his later years, so he was pretty interested. And then yeah, so maybe my mom is interested in that because of him. I'm not sure. And then my dad's not into it at all. And then I think that's because he like actually doesn't want it at all. And then I mean, this is my opinion about him. He probably has his own opinion, but like he kind of like his family. It's like a lot of like village doctors, so traditional medicine
Mm.
practitioners. And then I think because that knowledge was lost, he's just like I don't know anything about it. But he actually like he does know some things, but he just kind of I mean says that he doesn't know anything.
I mean, it's so built into Eastern cultures, just like whether somebody does it as their profession or not, right? Just like the whole idea of Eastern medicine, even it's just like a thing, like, oh, you do,
Yeah.
and it's categorized, I guess, more from the West as being an Eastern system or whatever. But um, I think like it's just built into our psyches and our just families and everything. So that's really interesting that you have that tie to your grandfather. But he would have done the Chinese
Yeah.
cosmology, that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, he
yeah.
wasn't into 八字. He was into Yi Jing. So yeah,
Is that a
yeah. Like
different type?
yeah. It's like the hexagrams, like the lines, the 6 lines, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little related, but it's not the same practice.
Right.
Mhm.
Do you when you are because I see when I follow you on social, you talk a lot about Western astrology, right? Like or I mean, you talk about a lot of different things, but
Yeah.
when you have people, I don't know, like when you're teaching people or reading for people, is it typically Western astrology or are you,
Yeah. Because I'm working here. I mean, I'm in Philadelphia.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah. So people are familiar with like Aries through Pisces, and then that's kind of the language that we use. I've tried to pull Banza into it. So like looking at the Banza chart for each person, and then at least like mentioning it. but it's like, yeah, like because the sessions, they're conversational, so they have to be back and forth and collaborative. So yeah, it's important to use the language that people are more familiar with, I think. And yeah, I mean, because it's like, okay, like for example, if we're talking about Bazi, it's like if someone sees me as having all the information and they can't talk back, then it doesn't work. Like I'm not an expert on this person's life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then yeah, and so I mean, I have used it where people are like, oh, yeah, I'm into this too, and then we can talk about it, and that's really cool. But yeah, just using whatever people can talk about. And yeah, I got into Western astrology through queer communities. So it
Mm.
is something that like people have an understanding of, like, this is my sun, this is my moon. Here's
Yeah.
here's how I experience it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that that was something that was a place that you felt called to go to when you felt like the rest of the world wasn't really accepting of your identity and just it was part of trying to get clarity in your own identity. Is that right?
Yeah, with Western astrology or
Yeah. Yeah. When you first were looking to,
yeah.
I guess, astrology. Yeah. Western astrology.
Yeah, I mean, it was to have fun, and then also like to be able to see yourself, and then talk about different things with people. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you get when you learned about more in depth and were able to apply it to your own kind of chart or, like, is that what you call it? I'm like, you
yeah,
call it your
yeah,
chart, right? Okay.
yeah. You're sure.
Your chart. Did it help you realize things? Did it like kind of like I was saying about like my son's diagnosis and it was like, oh, that like it was like the light had been flicked on, like that's what it felt
Right.
like. Did you feel like that for your own self, applying what you were learning about your chart and how to read it?
Yeah, I think it helped me clarify the situation that I was in at the time. I think astrology can illuminate things that you already know about yourself,
Mm.
and then like give it a description. But like you do have the same chart from like when you're born to when you pass too. So you
Mm.
have it for your entire life, and then it means different things throughout that entire lifespan. And then so yeah, like realizing things about yourself through reading the world, through reading the chart, it's kind of continual. And then yeah, I'm not sure if like it can yeah make you realize something that like you don't to like some extent already know too. And then that's
Mm.
what I tell people I work with. It's like it's not like I'm like telling you things about yourself, or like things are coming out of the blue to you. Like we're actually conversing, we're trying to generate new information through conversation. But really like yeah, we're working with like who you already are is yeah, I think it's pretty important.
It's maybe more just like helping you put it into a certain
Yeah,
language, put it into a
yeah,
certain, yeah. And
yeah,
sometimes I think we need that. I have needed it
yeah,
to almost like give me permission to
yeah.
like dig into or accept that part of me, something,
Dig
like
into yourself.
yeah, right.
Mhm.
And being like some, because I don't know, whatever it is, whether it's families, expectations, or society's impositions, whatever it is, like we feel like we need to be boxed in a certain way.
Mhm.
Or like if we're on a particular career path, like it's like, oh, well, this is what I studied in college. This is what I've already invested in. This is just what I'm going to do, even though knowing like that's not your passion, that's not your calling.
Mhm.
And I think it can help inform. It just gives you, I feel like it's given me permission um, in certain areas of my life. And yeah, but it's like, oh my God, I didn't know that about myself.
Right,
It's not really
yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, oh,
What's your big like what's your sun moon rising? Can I
so I'm an
ask?
Aquarius sun,
Nice.
Aries moon, Virgo
Oh,
rising.
oh, nice. Yeah. I
But
have Aquarius Aries too.
oh,
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
Apparently, though, I'm very Virgo. So my astrologer,
Hmm.
which I was really kind of disheartened to hear at first because
Oh,
I was
really?
really proud of being Aquarius. I don't know,
Yeah.
Aquarius just sounds so
So cool.
cool. Yeah, before I knew much about it, but I have a lot of Virgo. I guess like the
Mhm.
rising is really powerful, right? Like the rising sign.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. What's your Mercury? Because then Mercury rules your chart if you're in Virgo, I think.
ooh, I have no idea what that
Oh,
is.
that's okay.
It must,
Mhm.
I, I feel like Virgo just rules my, like, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't, I'm
yeah,
just very Virgo heavy is what I
yeah.
hear. Which I accept now and like I use it for, for good. But, yeah. And the Aries moon was also kind of one of those things that like, yes, was accurate, but like, I never, because I equate that to like being really fiery, being really like, having,
Uh,
right. I don't know if that's accurate, but like,
mhm.
and if you've ever heard like the Korean temper, I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard
yeah.
that. Yeah, right. And
A
so
stereotype. Yeah.
it is a stereotype. So that's also why I was like, no, that's not true.
Right.
But actually for me is quite
Mhm.
relevant. Like I am
Yeah.
very fiery when it comes to emotions but like in
Nice.
kind of in like the rising, but then also the like tamping out of it. It's like quick,
Oh,
it's just like
yeah. Yeah.
not sort of this like I'll like forget what I was mad about or really,
Yeah.
whatever. It
Yeah.
just kind of passes. But I just wanted to whatever I thought an Aquarius represented, before I understood more, um, really wanted to identify with, just like, I don't know,
Hmm.
like head in the clouds, like such a thought
Right.
leader, trendsetter, just like marches to the beat of their
Totally.
own, all this stuff. And it's like, no, actually you're like kind of neurotic,
Oh my God.
like, yeah. And then you've got like really your emotions are like a little bit crazy. But I was like, oh no, that's true.
Oh,
But the more understand about something, the more it doesn't
yeah.
control you, right? Whatever
Yeah.
parts of it that may have felt controlling, as I understand it more, can, like, I know that about myself and I can kind of
Yeah.
manage it better.
Yeah.
But I want to hear your thoughts on Jungkook from BTS.
Oh,
Is that who
yeah.
you're saying, who released his birth time? I mean,
Well,
everyone must have known his birthday already, right? And
yeah.
location.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
he must have released his birth, like somehow his
Yeah.
birth time became public.
His birth time, he tattooed on his arm, and he has a clock tattooed on his arm. That's his birth time. But we were never sure AM or PM. And then
And that's a big
recently on,
difference.
it's a
AM
huge
PM is a
difference.
huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah, but recently on live, he confirmed it's 3:23 or 3:25 p.m. Yeah. Yeah. So now we know the exact time. We can look at his like chart. He actually, I think because like his chart doesn't have any wood, and then his name has a wood radical in the Hanja. So I was
Mm.
I feel like he maybe tattooed it on his arm because he's into astrology too.
Mm.
And then yeah, I mean, I'm into BTS, so like I know that he had this old Twitter from before he debuted that was following astrology content
Mm.
and like really into horoscopes. So I was like, he knows his chart. Like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
was there anything I'm sure you looked at the Western astrology, and sounds like you looked at his, I can't say, I always feel like I'm
It's
butchering Chinese words, but Bazu, you looked at that too?
Batsu. And
Bazu,
then, yeah,
yeah.
I looked at both. And I feel like he's probably more familiar with the Batsu or Saju chart.
Mm.
Because, and the reason why is because there's like a Shinsha in his chart called Gold Safe or Golden
Mm.
Closet. And then
Mm.
his film production studio is called Golden Closet Films. And his new
Mm.
album is going to be called Golden. So I was like, okay, like, yeah, like there's no way he doesn't know about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've
Yeah.
never found interviews of him explicitly talking about it?
He did talk about another time in live where I think he said something like, I don't have any wood in my chart. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
That's
they
so
all know it. They all know it.
Is there anything that you see that informs his massive success and talent? Can you like see that, like, oh man, this person was destined to become,
I don't know. Yeah. Because, like, when so, like, in all these systems, you read them, and then there's like, there's something about it that's very archaic, too. So, when you look at the Banzi chart, it's like, oh, here's how you function like a Confucian way, even.
right.
But there's like not so much information about, like, well, what would be your success if you were in a boy band?
Right.
Um, um, But you know what?
Right.
His fire, because his like, so his day master is fire. It's surrounded by other fire. So that's a lot of
Mm,
peers. So I was like, okay, you're in a 7-member boy band. Like you have a lot of like-minded people around you. Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Is there something, can you see that in his Western chart too? Is
His
there anything?
Western chart, it's like Sun and Moon in the ninth house, and then his Mercury is exalted in Virgo as well. So yeah, he's born the new moon eclipse in Virgo, and then Mercury is there as well. And then he has like, chart ruler Saturn in fall in the fourth house. And then he has yeah, dignified Venus in Libra in the 10th house. So I mean a lot of strong placements for sure. But again, it's not like a system where it's like, oh hey, like yeah, here's your success as a boy band member, like
Right.
idol group talent. So much like maybe yeah, the prominence of the chart ruler and Venus yeah, and then the sun too. The sun rejoices in the ninth, and then it's there with
What's
Mercury.
what's the ninth house again?
It's ninth house. It's where the sun has its joy, and then it's like it's the house of like publishing. It's the house of like what you think,
Mm,
and yeah, things like that.
right.
Mhm.
No, it's so fun to I think you said earlier you got into it because it was just fun. You're having fun with it.
It's so
And
fun.
it is so fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's something so magical about it. Like it's just, I don't know. It feels very comforting somehow just
yeah,
to, I guess it's because it feels like a connection to some sort of source energy
right.
and it gives some maybe deeper meaning to
Yeah,
what can often feel like a mundane life.
yeah. It's very
So
mythical and elemental.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really lovely in that way. I before we, I have know we're running out of time, but like, why did you name your book like, but the post-colonial? We talk about.
Mhm.
I feel like the word colonial or decolonizing, like that is just a very buzzy idea these days. Like I mentioned, I think I mentioned I was teaching yoga, and I started teaching in like 2003, and we didn't have the language to understand kind of the like very appropriative nature of what it means to teach yoga in the Western world in America, and like
Right.
just the big problems of like the wellness industry overall when it comes to just I don't just true social justice, like for whatever, like just understanding like the racism and the white supremacy that runs through it all. Like, but I didn't have that language back then. But there's something as the years went on that just felt very uncomfortable for me. And in recent years, I've come to understand it and the need. And I'm now seeing like within the yoga world, there's people like there's accounts about decolonizing yoga, or like just closing the wellness gap and all this stuff. And I just wonder where the title of your book came from and like what is important to you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, post-colonialism, like it's like yeah, it's like a theory practice that's about recognizing the existence of colonialism, first of all. And then I'm also about imagining world post. Um, and then I mean, like astrology, it's like it's developed with colonialism. So there's a lot of meanings that we have to reckon with, like inside of the language itself, but also how we practice it for sure. So doing both simultaneously, and then I mean, like what that looks like sometimes isn't the same. Um, but yeah, I mean, the book is called Post-Colonial Astrology. It was suggested by my publisher. I wanted to name it something that was like kind of like yeah, like magic ism or something like like doesn't really make sense. It's a great name that they suggested.
Yeah. Well, are you really involved in, like, do you know a lot of other astrologers? Are you involved in that sort of world, or do you sort of work in your own, kind of in your own space, like, or are you connecting with, I'm curious what the industry looks like, going back to my friend just feeling like being white and she's just like, I don't want to add to this. Like, it feels like such a white world already. I don't know. Do you sense that?
Well, it depends on where you're at too. And yeah, I do. I mean, I know a lot of astrologers, hang out with people, like, tell astrology jokes with people, like things like that. And then, I mean, there's a lot of people of color practicing astrology, a lot of queer people as well. Sometimes you do go to a space and it's mostly white people. That's been changing the last few years. And then yeah, and then I mean, yeah, I'm on the East Coast. I don't know where you're at, where your friend's
Yeah, I
at.
mean, well,
Yeah,
she's in Portland. She's where Portland, Oregon.
right.
She's pretty
Mhm.
white. I'm in New York. So
Yeah,
we're nearby. But
nice.
yeah, do you find that
Mhm.
Asian or BIPOC people or other people with, I guess, just non-mainstream identities seek you out intentionally because of who you are, Like, do you find that like the way I sought you out was definitely because I'm like, oh, I feel this connection with
Right.
our like racial background and the
Yeah.
work you do. Like, yeah, do you think that there's people that are aware and wanting to get the information of people that they share more identity, like characteristics with?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my clients do tend to be people of color. And that's not to say like, oh, like we agree about everything. Like we don't, and then that should be the case. But yeah, I think people seek out readings when they're going through a period of transition and they want like a space to narrate some of what's been going on. So I hope people seek me out like when that's going on
Hmm.
too. Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna say, I feel like on the East Coast, like I feel like astrology tends to be more diverse. Like I don't know about that though, because I haven't really lived on the West Coast. Yeah, but I do feel like from like maybe it's because like when I go to the West Coast, I mean there's a visitor and then I only see like a top layer or something
Yeah.
of what's going on.
The highlights.
The
Yeah.
highlights of
Yeah.
yeah. But and then here, like, I'm living here, I'm like talking with people, and then I do feel like there's yeah, I mean, there's just more people of color, I guess, if you live in a place and know people.
Yeah. Well, you're
Mhm.
also really actively like you're very like actively out there as who you are and
Yeah,
what you talk about and so that will naturally attract like a
yeah.
like-minded, not having the same thoughts or whatever necessarily, but maybe the similar
Mhm.
openness, right, of like how you want to move through the world ultimately and the people that you want in your life and the conversations that you're having. And like I just want to ask you, like you are really you're active on social media. It's got to be a big part of the way you reach people. um I don't know, I've always had this like pretty tenuous relationship with social media. Like I get it just gets overwhelming and I just want to like like
Get rid of it.
delete. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with it like? I feel like you use it so beautifully. You use it really well. Like
Mhm.
you share such interesting, inspiring information and I would imagine you get a lot of good feedback and comments from people. Like I feel like you've created a really lovely space, but like how does it feel for you? Like do you love Instagram basically?
Yeah, I don't love Instagram. Like I don't love social media. I grew up when the internet was more like splintered, not just like three big websites. So yeah, I don't like the consolidation factor of social media. I like diverse landscapes like of different like geocities and things like that. But yeah, I mean, like Instagram, I usually just like schedule in different posts and then have a schedule too. So sometimes I don't look at it, and then
Mm,
sometimes I do because it's like it's kind of cool to be like seeing what people post, which is a different type of connection than just talking with them too.
yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate it, and I also have my feelings about it.
Wait,
Like
but
I agree, yeah, with a different type of internet.
yeah, yeah, totally same. But why are there so many bot accounts?
I
There's,
know
but
there's so
it
many.
particularly there's a lot with your like variations of your handle.
I
Do you
know,
know
right? I
that?
don't know why. Like,
What is
okay,
that?
they have me blocked, so I don't know like what all the scammers are doing. Like, I can't even see them. is
Right.
actually the case. And then, but then people will tell me like, hey, like I just got scammed from this person pretending to be you. I feel like, that sucks. Like, I,
Why? It's like,
yeah,
why though? It's so bizarre.
right.
It's
Yeah,
like,
I have no idea. Yeah.
I think that when I initially followed you like a while back, somebody with like a very similar handle
This is
followed
a
me back. And
scammer.
it wasn't, no, it wasn't you because I saw it
Mhm.
initially. And then, but then I think there was a number in it or something like in the, it just
Right.
looked weird. And then when I clicked on it, I was like, obviously, I don't know, it had maybe like 300 followers or something. It was really small. And I'm like, oh my God, this isn't them,
It's a
like this is,
scam. Yeah, it's a
yeah. But
scam.
I've seen
Yeah.
so many since, I think
I
like,
don't know. Yeah. I mean, they do for other astrologers too. It's
I, I do
like
notice
I
it
feel
with
like
astrology. It's
yeah,
really,
Instagram needs to do something about it because it's kind of like it's not cool that people are getting scammed. Like there's a rise in scamming as an industry too because like people are getting trafficked to work these
mm,
scams and then they're trapped
mm,
in situations too. So it's like if okay, like if the social media like entity does something to crack down on it, then like if the industry can't do it, then there's going to be less of that going on too. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, people are losing money too, losing money that they need due to
yeah.
these.
I'm
Yeah.
understanding now. It's because people who find these scammer accounts are looking to book those services, like right, book whatever, maybe like an astrology reading or something,
Yeah.
and they're thinking they're doing it with the authentic person, and then it's not. But maybe they give their money, like they pay, and
Right. So
ultimately,
then,
like it must
yeah.
be because astrologers you're offering
Mhm.
like you would it is sensible that you would sell a reading through social media, so the person who doesn't realize they're being scammed, they're like, oh,
They
that
don't
makes sense
realize.
that I
Yeah.
would, but
Yeah, but
that's,
no, I
yeah,
never DM people, like never ever. I think in the past 3 years, I've DM'd someone once.
right,
So, and then that was like someone I personally knew. And then so
right,
like,
right,
yeah, it wasn't like, yeah, it was just like a personal correspondence. So like I never DM people. I don't even look at DMs.
yeah,
Any DM from me, like quote unquote me, is not me.
yeah. That's so weird to just be like you're being
Mhm.
impersonated by either a computer or whatever, like a
I think it
person
is
having
real
created. It's
people. I
yeah,
think
it's
it's real
weird.
people.
Yeah. Does it
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
really violating? Like it just seems like it
I
would
mean,
be
yeah,
for you
I
to,
feel bad for people who are being scammed. I feel bad for people who are trafficked into like doing this scamming because like they're trapped is like what's going on. And
yeah.
I feel bad for myself too because it's like it takes away from my credibility if people like actually confuse the scammer for me. But
Well,
like
it's good you write it on your bio. It's like right there. Like I do not,
yeah, I
the
try
DM's
to
not from
yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, and now and then I try to do like an email blast or a post where it's like PSA, like if you get a DM from it's not me. Like so I try my best to alert people about like the situation, but
I've actually received, this is not from someone impersonating you. It was like someone totally random. Like I don't even follow a person with a similar name, but they were like, I'm some spiritual guide, and
no, that's a scam.
and it was like
Yeah.
but it freaked me out because it was like
Ugh.
I have information about your children.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was like this long thing, and
Fucked
I
up.
initially they could see that I had seen it,
Right.
because I like
Yeah.
read it, and they wrote like, I see that you saw, like, I mean, I really have this important like
Wow.
life or death information, and I knew it was fake,
Yeah.
but it still scared me,
It
I
is
was like,
creepy.
it's so creepy. And
Oh
I
my
was just like,
God.
oh, like, and I blocked that person, but I don't think I think I don't think I deleted that conversation because I'm like, oh my God, what if it's
Because
some
it's
like
creepy.
psychic that like knows something, and
No, no,
oh, but
no.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
they always say
I
things
yeah.
like that. But I message like one of the bots pretending to be me from my actual handle, and then I was trying to call them to like confront them, and then
Mm,
like they were shooting me these messages like, "Oh, I'll give you intuitive read." I was like, do you not see that it's me? So yeah, it's not like it feels very creepy, but they know nothing about it.
Yeah, but you're right. It's got to be real people on
Yeah.
because of the way that's what creeped me out. At first, I'm like, it's a bot, but then it just the way the language went, I'm like, I don't think
Mhm.
this is a bot. But then
Yeah.
eventually I looked into it a bit more and I'm like, oh, this is like a scamming thing that
Right.
happens. It's so messed up.
Yeah, there's like
Um,
a BBC documentary about the rise in scams called like it's called 杀猪盘. So it's called like bringing pigs to slaughter. And then people
Ew.
build long romantic relationships with the a fake person and then end up giving them their whole life savings.
That's like so it just seems like no, there's no way that would happen, but it
No,
happens.
yeah, it
Yeah.
happens. Yeah, and
Oh
particularly
goodness.
to vulnerable people, like people maybe you find you're ill and then you're going through something, and then you receive this kindness, and then yeah,
There's craziness out there.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Oh well, this has been such an awesome conversation. I'm just this there's so many questions I have, but I really appreciate that you went there with all the astrology talk and um
It was so
yeah,
fun talking with you. Yeah,
yeah, I loved
I'm
it.
glad. I'm glad you reconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what's the latest? Like, is your book the latest thing for people? Post colonial astrology, is that your latest work out there?
I have another book. It's called Aligning Your Planets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so yeah, too.
Are you working on more writing projects?
I am, but yeah, we'll see. Like, I'll keep going.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. You're always working on it and it's kind of tricky to talk about it when it's not a finished product yet, right? Just like
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, because it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
constant work in progress.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ace. This was awesome.
It was so fun talking with you. I
Yeah,
mean, I
thank
hope
you.
we keep talking too.
I would love to. I would love to stay in touch and maybe we can look
Yeah.
more into the Asian cosmologies and see what I don't know,
Yeah, get into
what
it.
like
It's
oh yeah,
fun. Yeah.
overlaps we can find and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
all right, I will this will probably take a few weeks to be edited and I will get in touch again for some more information, just some stuff to like ask you for some stuff that will you be okay with me posting like a photo or whatever when I go to promote
Okay.
it and so I'll just contact you for that in a couple weeks.
That sounds
All
great. I mean,
right.
thank you for the lovely conversation.
Oh, thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
All
Bye,
right.
Leah.
Bye.
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 Bye.